All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, with a record of 7 and 10, the Dallas Cowboys just wrapped up a disappointing season as they fell short of making the playoffs after reaching the postseason each of the last 3 years. But as it's time to play the blame game as to why things didn't end with the trip to the playoffs for Dallas, the biggest chunk of that blame, in my opinion, must be heaped on the guy who calls the shots for the Cowboys. So, at 82 years of age, Jerry Jones is still the man who writes the checks for the Cowboys as their franchise's owner, but Jerry is also the guy who takes care of business and puts the roster together as the team's president and general manager as well. And because of that, Jerry deserves his fair share and then some of the blame for the Cowboys' shortcomings, as he was the one who did and continues to put this team together. You think back to last offseason when Jerry was like, the Cowboys are all in, and they were all in on doing absolutely nothing. No, not signing Pro Bowl running back Derrick Henry last summer when the future Hall of Famer was sitting there, and it only took 16 million for 2 years for the Baltimore Ravens to get him. The Cowboys instead brought back Ezekiel Elliott, who finished as with Dallas, and this team as a whole, they just finished the season 27th in rushing. And to give you an idea of that, Derrick Henry by himself outgained the entire team. Steven, what's going on to you? Happy Monday. You are saying, as a Tennessee Titans fan, if Deion Sanders comes on board as Cowboys head coach, Cowboys are going to have to give the Titans either Dak Prescott or Micah Parsons in addition to some picks if they want number one. Okay, we can definitely chat about that because I was going to, parlay into the whole Dion scenario in a moment. But I'll ask you this, and please feel free to put it into the chat box there. If you're the Titans, okay, and as a Titans fan, clearly, would you be okay with Dak Prescott going forward as your quarterback? So, and I'm not saying that as a knock on Dak. I'm just curious. I would like to know, how would you feel with Dak going forward as your quarterback? But I will say this to your point: if you're the Titans and you're as bad as you've been recently, that's a pretty good way to turn things around. And it's funny because you already have the former Cowboys running back starting in your backfield and Tony Pollard. And if you can get a quarterback out of it and get it and get a number one or something like that, I'd say go for it. You're saying it all depends on the trade. We made it work with Ryan Tannehill. Yes, you did. Um, Ryan Tannehill should send Derrick Henry Christmas cards for the rest of his life, because you think about it, that run that the Titans had to the AFC Championship game in 2019, and of course, a lot of people fell in love with Ryan Tannehill. He was doing a lot of that off play action, simply from the running of King Henry. So, with it said, I think it could work. I mean, Dak, just hypothetically speaking, is Dak the next coming of Joe Montana? Absolutely not. But you can do a lot worse than Dak Prescott at quarterback. And of course, the Tennessee Titans did a lot worse at quarterback this past season because, Steven, you'll probably agree with me. Will Levis ain't no franchise quarterback. I saw it in college. Okay. I don't know what the Titans saw to go out there and think that anything was going to be different. Will Levis ain't the guy. And I mean, you could see already here in year number one, Brian Callahan was getting a little bit fed up. And I'm not going to sit up there and repeat the things that you could clearly see uh, Brian Callahan telling Will Levis on the sidelines, because, he was, you just had to be a lip reader to do it. But nonetheless, it is a scenario, okay, where if you're the Titans and you can get yourself a quarterback and you could still get some picks out of it, and go forward with that, if that could be the scenario, and that's the big if, hey, you know what? Go for it. Because you look at it like this, Dallas's roster, from their standpoint this past season, and I knew it was going to be a problem. They were top heavy. You basically had Dak, you had CD Lamb, and you had Micah Parsons. Okay. And Jerry hasn't done a good job drafting lately. But, hypothetically speaking, with that, what we're talking about here, if you're the Titans and you get in Dak and you get some more picks out of it, because there's going to be some other picks if that were to be the case, then you know what? You could really come out of this smelling like a rose. But again, all of this from the Cowboys' perspective falls at the feet of one Jerry Jones. I mean, you think about it this season. They had some injuries um, to Dak and Micah Parsons, and of course, they began the season 3-7. Defensively, they were not good against the run. Um, they were bad in 2023. That continued for the 2024 season. They gave up 137 yards per game. And for Jerry Jones, okay, and Steven, I don't know how you feel about Amy Adams Strunk with what she's doing as far as running the Titans organization right now. But in my opinion, Jerry wants to go out there and make people believe that he's the smartest guy in the room. And I'll tell you like this, he ain't. All right. It's one of those where, he's been a good salesman throughout his life. And he continues to try to sell people on the fact that, hey, he knows more as far as what he's doing with the Cowboys than anybody else. And honestly, he wants to sell people on the fact that he wants to win. He don't want to win. And the reason is this. You're talking about one of the most valuable franchises in all of professional sports. And I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys. And regardless, if you got 85,000 people at AT&T Stadium, aka Jerry World, cheering for the Cowboys, or 25,000 of those people are cheering for the other team, guess what? Jerry's pocketing all of that money. Jerry has not cared about winning for quite some time. You're saying, yeah, right now, Amy Adams Strunk is running the organization to the ground ever since John Robinson was gone. And yeah, the Titans, they've it's been pretty bad lately. If you think about it, Mike Malarkey before Mike Vrabel, and then of course Mike Vrabel, they had something going, and I don't know what the Titans are doing right now. But like I said, if what you're talking about is a hypothetical trade could be worked out, you know what? Things could be looking up for Tennessee. Uh, but with Jerry, it's one of those where everything is bigger in the great state of Texas. Okay. And Jerry Jones has an ego like no other to go along with this $1 billion playroom that we all know is Jerry World. But it's been 29 years and counting for the Dallas Cowboys as far as not winning a championship. And I guarantee you that number is going to continue to increase. Very rarely in sports do you have an opportunity like the Dallas Cowboys had 30 some odd years ago? Of course, Jimmy Johnson comes in, Jerry Jones purchases a team, and a lot of that, as far as what the Cowboys did with those championship teams in the 90s, a lot of that goes back to that Herschel Walker trade where Jimmy Johnson got so many picks and was able to flip around picks, more players, you name it. And you think about it, that Cowboys team was set up to win and win a lot. And I know that they got 3 championships in the 90s. And again, winning championships in the National Football League ain't easy. But Dallas really could have gotten 5 if Jerry Jones had simply left Jimmy Johnson alone and let him do his job. And the thing is, Jerry Jones's ego will not allow him to admit that he was wrong about it. You think about it. Look how long it took after Jimmy Johnson left the Cowboys for him to be put into the Ring of Honor. And you think about all of those players that Jimmy had that were already there, your Charles Haley's, your Troy Aikmans, your Michael Irvins, your Moose Johnstons, your Emmett Smiths, and we can go right down the list. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago before Jerry was like, you know what? Let's put Jimmy Johnson into the Cowboys Ring of Honor. Okay. And it didn't stop there because Jerry, you're talking about Amy Adams, Steve, with the Tennessee Titans. Jerry Jones ain't doing that much better with the Dallas Cowboys. You think about it, because this is a guy who, aside from being team owner, wants to be team president, wants to be team GM, probably, the head of the strength and conditioning program. Who knows what else Jerry Jones is doing for the Cowboys? But nonetheless, this is a guy that appeared to be clueless last Sunday when Dallas' season ended with the loss against the Commanders in regards to backup quarterback Cooper Rush not playing and missing out on incentives. Jerry's a general manager. Jerry's a team president. Jerry knows that. Okay. And for him to sit up there and act like he didn't know what was going on, I think was an absolute joke. And then fast forwarding, after that, the whole situation, we know about the Bears wanting to interview Mike McCarthy for their vacant head coaching position. Jerry Jones denying that. And then just to turn around today and let Mike McCarthy go. I think that was the ultimate slap in the face. I'm not here to say that Mike McCarthy was Bill Walsh, but you think about it. In 5 seasons as the head coach of the Cowboys, they went 49-35, three straight 12-5 seasons, three straight trips to the playoffs. Of course, that he was only 1-3 in the postseason, but nonetheless, I ask you to bring in any coach and think that they're going to do better than what Mike McCarthy did. It's a scenario where I get it. People want the Cowboys to succeed because they're the Dallas Cowboys. But the problem is you got Jerry Jones. And Jerry has to be the most captivating figure with this team. You look around the entire National Football League. How many team owners do you see having, a media circus around them after each and every game? It's the same old thing with Jerry Jones each and every game for the Cowboys, whether they're home or whether they're on the road. You see him with the security detail after the game. You see him heading to the locker room, and he sits up there and has a press conference. Usually, most owners around the NFL, they might talk to the media, once a year, maybe in training camp, giving their state of the team excuse me, address, or maybe at some point during the season or at the end of the season. And, Jerry, because he wants to be the focal point, okay, continues to be a distraction because at the end of the day, it's all about him. And, Mike McCarthy just left town. And you think about how many talented head coaches that Jerry Jones ran out of town. He ran Jimmy Johnson out of Dallas. He ran Bill Parcells out of Dallas. And of course, now Mike McCarthy. And there's rumors about Deion Sanders possibly, being the Dallas Cowboys head coach. And I think at this point, if Deion wants the job, Deion's going to have it. But for me, I think Deion should just stay in college because I don't see him having success as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys because of Jerry Jones. Because Jerry wants to sit up there, he wants to buy the groceries, he wants to cook the meal, and then he wants you to serve the meal. But as you're serving the meal, he wants to be front and center to tell everybody what he did. And that right there causes the problem. You're not going to get a worthwhile head coach to come in there without allowing that person to have some type of say in personnel decisions. Jerry Jones made it work being the GM, first time around when it was him and Jimmy Johnson. And of course, Jimmy Johnson, did have some say in how things went. It hasn't worked that since then because guess what? You're not going to be put in a position if you're the Cowboys to get a haul of picks like you did to build a championship team like you did with the Herschel Walker scenario. That is not coming down the pike anytime soon. Jerry did it before, but Jerry's not going to do it again. And unfortunately for Cowboys fans, there's nobody around that's going to hold Jerry Jones accountable because guess what? He's a team owner. Who in that organization is going to tell him, Jerry, you need to take a step back and hire a GM. You need to take a step back and hire a team president. You need to step back and allow somebody else to do the personnel decisions. It ain't going down like that. Jerry Jones is a billionaire. He's a multi-billionaire. And I don't see anybody around that's going to sit up there and get him to change his mind on the way that he wants to do business. And at the end of the day, the people who are going to suffer are those diehard Cowboy fans that really want this team to go out there and win. The Cowboys are going to be good enough to win some games in the regular season when they're healthy. They're going to be good enough to get to the playoffs, and they're going to be good enough to possibly win a playoff game. That's going to be it. But again, we're talking about a team that hasn't even made the NFC Championship game since their last trip to the Super Bowl. And we're talking at this point, January of 1996. And I ask anybody out there who's checking this out now, who's going to check this out in the archives, think about what you were doing 30 years ago. Think about the landscape of our world 30 years ago. That's the last time that we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys even getting to the conference championship game, more or less the Super Bowl. So we talked about Deion possibly coming in and taking over this team, but is being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys that desirable? And honestly, I'm going to say no, because at the end of the day, who really wants to work for Jerry Jones? And I feel like, if you're Dion, I get it. Getting to the NFL, you played for the Cowboys, but I think you would have more success staying in college at Colorado. I know that people are like, well, this is going to be the first time that he's not going to coach his son. I'll tell you like this: if Dion does get the Cowboy job, Steven, to your point, they're probably going to move heaven and earth to try to get Shador. And from where the Cowboys are sitting, in the grand scheme of things, as far as where they will be picking in round one, it would definitely cost them a king's ransom in order for them to move up and get Shador Sanders, if that were to be the case. So my other thing for the Dallas Cowboy fans, and I mean they've got some loyal diehard fans, and I know some of those fans personally. Okay, will they ever wake up and see that their team will never, in my opinion, win again as long as Jerry Jones continues to operate this franchise? For me, in my opinion, at this point, Jerry Jones is truly the emperor with no clothes. That's all he is right now. You think about it, and Jerry, I think, is focused more on the entertainment aspect and the entertainment value of his team as opposed to winning. Okay. And at the end of the day, it's costing this team. Not financially, of course, but to me, I think it's costing this team. So there's a lot I think that is still and will be up in the air for the Cowboys as their offseason has begun. First things first, who is going to be the head coach of this team? And again, if Dion, just for the sake of argument, were to leave Colorado and go to the Cowboys, how much of a say in personnel decisions is Jerry Jones going to give him? That is the $1 million question that I'm asking, because that's going to be big. Because you figure if you're Dion and you stay at Colorado, albeit this would be the first time you ain't coaching your sons, you're still the top dog in Boulder. You're regulating things. You're talking about NILs. You name it. Okay, and the kids want to play for you. We've seen that. But at the end of the day, it's the Jerry show in Dallas for these Cowboys. So that's going to be the biggest thing for me. Uh, the Dion talk is nice, like I said, but not to try to sound like a broken record. I really do think that he needs to remain in Colorado. But maybe Jerry gives him an offer that he simply can't refuse. I don't know. We've got to wait and see. I mean, there was a time when Dion talked about not wanting to coach in the National Football League because he felt like it wasn't going to be as easy for him to get his message across through the play to the players in the NFL. But the college kids will listen to him. The high school kids will listen to him. So if that's going to be the case, let's see. Let's see what's going to happen. But it's tough to be on the same page with Jerry Jones. That is the big issue, and that is what continues to be the issue for the Dallas Cowboys. I know that they're one of the NFL's marquee franchises. It's the Cowboys. They're like the Yankees of the NFL. I totally get it. But the bottom line is if you've got bad ownership it really hinders and restricts what you can do. Jerry did it more than 30 years ago, but he did it with a darn good head coach in one Jimmy Johnson. And guys like that don't come down the pike that often. And unfortunately, it took Jerry too long to admit that he made a mistake in letting Jimmy go. And he's never gotten a situation like that again. I mean, you think about it, you got a better chance of getting struck by lightning twice than you have winning the lot than to win the lottery. Jerry won that lottery, okay, more than 30 years ago, and he thought he could do it again. Guys like Jimmy Johnson don't come down the pike that often because Jimmy was perfect for the Dallas Cowboys until things went south. It's been a litany of coaches since then. Most of them have been yes men for Jerry. And of course, anytime he got brought in a head coach with experience, a strong minded head coach, it simply did not work out. Deion was a phenomenal player for the Dallas Cowboys. If he were to come in to be their head coach, what type of head coach would he be for them with Jerry Jones? I'm not sure. I'm sure that he would get plenty of support from his former players, but at the end of the day, he's still got to deal with Jerry. And Jerry's ego, like I said, is bigger than AT&T Stadium. Uh, Very interesting off season has gotten off on an interesting start, so to speak, for the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe Dion is the way to go. I don't know. I was still, like a lot of people, surprised about the whole Mike McCarthy situation, especially since Jerry did not allow him to interview with the Chicago Bears last week. But nonetheless, it's Jerry Jones. Nothing surprises me at this point as far as the futility and the mistakes that he continues to make in regards to leading this franchise. Cowboys fans deserve better than this. That's the bottom line. Okay. But is Jerry Jones going to allow his ego to be pushed aside to do what's best for the Cowboys? Absolutely not. So it doesn't matter if it's Dion, whoever that's coaching the Cowboys next year. As long as Jerry Jones continues to sign the checks, and as long as Jerry Jones, his ego continues to get in the way of what is best for the Dallas Cowboys and what is best for business, we're going to continue to have discussions like this. The Cowboys, maybe they do something in the offseason. Maybe they're good enough to get back to the playoffs next year. We got to wait and see. But nonetheless, I'm not holding my breath on the Cowboys being legit contenders as long as Jerry Jones continues to own and operate this team. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Stephen, definitely appreciate you chiming in tonight. You clearly know what you're talking about in regards to the Tennessee Titans. And I'll tell you what, if you haven't already, my friend, please feel free to like and subscribe to this channel. I've got some stuff that I'm working on. I actually want to talk about the Tennessee Titans draft outlook. So definitely keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. And if Dion does go to Dallas, that might add a big wrinkle into the Titans offseason outlook as well as the outlook of the NFL draft. We've got to wait and see. But for everybody, thank you again for chiming in. If you like what you saw and heard on this podcast, please feel free to hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. It's definitely truly appreciated. Also, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off. I'm saying take care and thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.